What do you think about dictators like Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin, Kim Il sung? Were they good leaders for their countries? Interesting question. So, these are dictators, like you say, autocrats, dictators, iron men, etc. That's what you would call them. I would not categorize Kim Il sung in the same category or the same bracket as Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin. Kim Il sung is a different kind of dictator. So Joseph Stalin was the strongman of the USSR, the most powerful dictator they had, and the one who had the most massive impact on the country, on the geopolitics of Europe and of Eurasia. Yeah, Mao Zedong was the guy who essentially brought the Chinese Communist Party to power, and he's the guy. He can be considered to be the founding father of the modern nation of communist China, right? So these guys, one could put them in the same bracket or same category. Kim Il sung was certainly the dictator of North Korea, the founding member of founding father of the Kim dynasty. His son's name was Kim Jong Il, and his grandson's name is Kim Jong Un, who is the current dictator of North Korea. Well, Kim Il sung derived his power from outside forces. He was essentially a puppet of China and the USSR, indirectly USSR, indirectly China. So that's what he was. Without the support, the external support of a massive player like China, Kim Il sung had no legitimacy and no power. His entire power was derived from outside support. So he was essentially a puppet. That's what he was. Of course, he was all powerful within his country, but if he did not obey the orders of his overlord, then he was going to be gone in a minute. That's how it was. So Kim Il sung derived his power from outside support. Mao Zedong had his own power base in China, and Joseph Stalin also had his own power base in the USSR. So these two guys were different. Now, all three were dictators, all three were despots, right? As we know, Joseph Stalin did all kinds of terrible, terrible atrocities in his country, outside his country as well. I mean, if you talk about the Katyn massacre of the Second World War, which was blamed on the Nazis, but it was then revealed that the USSR did that. It was done on the orders of Joseph Stalin. I think it was Vasily Blokhin, the world's most infamous executioner, who carried it out. And we know about the terrible famine in the Ukraine, the Holodomor, and all kinds of terrible purges that he carried out. And I don't know how many millions of people either directly or indirectly died at the on the orders or at the hands of Joseph Stalin. There's also his commissars like Yezhov and what was the guy's name? There was this guy called Yezhov, who was his head of the NKVD, I think, or the head of the secret police. And before Yezhov, there was another guy. They were all eliminated. So it was a tyrannical rule, right? That's the kind of rule that Joseph Stalin had in the USSR. Very, very brutal rule. But of course, he industrialized the USSR and he transformed the country through brute force and through a variety of methods into a genuine superpower, one of the two superpowers in the world. So on the one hand, his rule was brutal, one could say barbaric, inhuman, and so on and so forth. He impoverished tens of millions of people in his country, maybe hundreds of billions of people in his country. And his rule, he mismanaged a lot of stuff, and it cost a lot of lives, too many lives, right? And the same thing can be said about Mao Zedong. He His rule was also very brutal. I mean, he may have ended up killing maybe almost 100 million of his own country people through a variety of terribly bungled plans and all kinds of things, right? The famines that he created, the artificial famines he caused, the so-called Great Leap Forward, the so-called Cultural Revolution. These were all enormous, massive disasters for China. Tens of millions of people died in these ridiculous schemes that he created, Mao Zedong. So yeah, I mean the human cost was terrible, and yet the policies he followed, they were the platform upon which Deng Xiaoping essentially took the country forward. So the what he created for Deng Xiaoping was this countrywide one party rule, which Deng Xiaoping was able to leverage in order to take China forward. And that's why China is like, well, the most powerful nation and the most prosperous nation in Eurasia today. So it was all because of Deng Xiaoping, but Deng Xiaoping would not have been able to do what he did had it not been for the state machinery that Mao Zedong built. So these guys, Stalin, Mao Zedong, they left behind mixed legacies. They killed way too many people. They caused the deaths of way too many people, tens of millions, maybe over 100 million people. They caused incredible amounts of misery, right? And suffering, unnecessary suffering. But they also eventually led to the rise of their countries in an aggregate fashion. So it's a mixed legacy. Obviously, when one would not wish such leaders on any other country, one certainly would not wish that sort of a leader in any civilized country, right? So yeah, that's what I can say about these three individuals. Kim Il Sung was nothing compared to these two guys.